Okay, so first of all, I want to apologize for not making a video in a while. I've been pretty busy on a project and that project is kind of winding down right now, so I hope I will have a bit more time to create these videos. I will try to do at least one a week, and when the project finishes, maybe even more. While all of this not creating videos was happening, the channel crossed a 10,000 subscriber mark. So I just want to thank you guys for watching my videos, for subscribing, and even for being my patrons, at least some of you. So thanks for that, and I will probably make a 10,000 subscriber video as soon as I get some camera equipment, decent camera equipment, so I can record myself and thank you guys properly. Okay, so that's it for the announcements of the channel, and let's get to work. So in this mini series, I'm going to cover the basics of front-end development tools. I'm doing this because when communicating with you guys, I learned that some of you haven't even heard of those tools, or don't know much about them, or don't know how to use them, and so on. So in this series we are going to cover quickly some of the tools that go into modern front-end development. I've been a front-end developer for around 15 years, but when I started, that job was just called a web designer, and all you had to know was just HTML, CSS, and a bit of JavaScript. But as the time goes on, that front-end development job became more complex and complex. So we are going to cover the tools in this series that probably most of the new employers are going to require from you to know. Things like terminal, so command line, which we are going to be covering in this episode, npm, gulp, SCSS, sass, git, and so on. So we are going to cover all of those tools so that you at least know the basics of them, so that when you are looking for a job, you know what the employer is actually asking from you. And in this first episode, we are actually going to be covering the command line. We are going to cover the command line because it's the basic thing that we are going to be needing throughout this series. And I'll also just want to point out that most of the stuff that we are going to be doing, we actually did in some of the previous videos. I just didn't explain them like at all. So, but as I said, when communicating with you guys, I realized that some of you didn't know what's going on, haven't even heard of those tools, didn't know how to use them. So this is what this series is all about. So we are going to cover that stuff right now, beginning with the command line, and then we are going to go to npm, SCSS, sass, and so on. Okay, so first of all, I'm on a Mac, and I realized that probably some of you are on Windows and some of you are on Linux. So if you are on a Mac or on a Linux, you don't have to worry about this part because you already have a terminal, and in that terminal you have your command line. The situation is a bit different for Windows users, but if you are using Windows 10, you can install this Ubuntu Shell on your machine and then use that, because it's going to be a terminal or command line that is going to be using Linux, Unix commands, which we are going to cover in this tutorial. So please install this. I'm going to leave the link to this page in the description. So you can install the Ubuntu Shell on your machine. If you don't have Windows 10, there are some other options, but you're going to have to look for them via Google, of course. So just Google Windows 8, Linux commands, shell, whatever. I think there is a Git shell or something like that that you can use on your Windows 8 and 7 machines. But as I said, if you're on a Mac or on a Linux, you should have a terminal application which will contain your command line, and that is what I'm going to be using in this video. So on a Mac or on a Linux, you get this terminal, and this is what it looks by default on a Mac. So you can use that to issue your commands, but I'm going to use something called iterm. My iterm actually uses this fish shell, but there are many shells that you can use on your computer, but bash shell comes by default on most of the systems. So you have fish shell, Z shell, K shell, bash, and so on. Most of the people I've seen either use bash shell or Z shell. Z shell is very popular, and I like using fish shell. But for this tutorial, we are not going to go into shells and so on. We are just going to use the bash shell. This is, as I said, the default shell for most of the systems. So where are we now? That's the first thing. Actually, you can even say, who am I now? So to do that, you just do who am I? And it says, so this is my first initial and my last name. So this is me. Okay, so where am I now? pwd. So it will tell you in which directory you're currently at. So I'm at my home directory, which is called users, and then my username. Next thing, we want to maybe change a directory. So if I want to change a directory to something like development, cd, I start writing de and press tab. So as you can see, there is nothing. Let's see de. Okay, now that I press tab once more, I have desktop and development. So dev and press tab again, I get to cd development. If I want to list files in that directory, I would just do ls. And I got this readme file, vagrant file, and public file. If I want to go back one directory, I would just do cd ... And now I'm in my home directory again. Okay, so let's go to the development directory one more time. And if you want to go directly to home, you would just do cd tilde. And now if you do pwd, you are again in your home directory. So from any directory, when you do cd tilde, you will automatically go to home directory. Now if I want to list stuff in here, I would just do ls. But I don't like this display, so it doesn't tell me anything. It's just names of the files and directories. But if I want a more detailed list, I would just do ls.la. And now I get this detail list. So the first thing you have here is these are the permissions. So you have a permissions for user, for group, and for others. So as you can see, this file right here is accessible for everyone. So read, write, execute, RWX. So user can execute and read and write files. A group can also do that, and others can also do that. But for this file, downloads, as you can see, only me, the owner of the file, can read, write, and execute, and all of the others can't do anything. Also, this D right here represents that this is a directory. Then you have the username, you have the group name. This is the file size. So it's probably not correct because it's for directory, but we have this composer file, and you can see how much it weighs, what's the file size in bytes. Then of course you have a date of creation or date of the last edit, and then you have the file name or directory name itself. So ls.la will give you the detailed list of your directory. Okay, so that's how you get around your system. Now let's try to create a new directory. If you want to clear out everything that is written right here, you can just do Command K or Control K, maybe on Linux, I think. So Command K, I remove everything, and now I have a clean terminal. Also, one more thing there is something called man pages. So for every command in your command line, you have a man page for it. And if I do man ls, I will get the manual for the ls command. So you can read all about that command. As you can see, it has a lot of options. You can see all of that commands right here. So if I do Q, I just exit out. So we are going to create a directory right now. And if you want to read about it, you would just do man mkdir. And now you get all of the options for creating directories. As you can see, this one is actually pretty small. Okay, Q. So let's create a directory. mkdir my first dir. Okay, now you have my first dir, and if I go cd, my first dir comes up, and if I do pwd, you see that I'm in users, my username, and my first directory. So I can create a subdirectory in it. Okay, so now if I ls, as you can see, I have my second directory. If I want to remove that directory, I would use a command called rmdir, my second directory. So this is the way you create and delete directories. Next thing we are going to learn about creating files. And also, if you want to repeat a command that you made previously, you can just use up and down arrows for that. So as you can see, I go through all of my history right now. So all of the commands that I created before. Okay, so how do you create a file? Well, you use a command called touch. And I create a file called myfile.txt. If I do ls, you can see it. If I do ls.la, you can see a little better. So as you can see, my file is currently at 0 bytes. So if I wanna add something to that file, so this is textual file, default textual file, nothing special about it. You can use something called vim or vi or nano, depending on what you get by default on your system. I don't know how to use vim, so I'm just going to use nano because it's a little bit simpler. So you just do nano myfile.txt and you get into this code editing, actual text editing program. So this is my new file, and if I want to exit out, I would just do Control X, and then it's going to ask me if I want to save the changes. I will say yes and press enter, and now I have that file. And if I do nano myfile.txt again, you will see that it has this line in it. Okay, so now we want to maybe copy that file somewhere. So if we do lsla, we have this myfile.txt right here. Let's create another directory. Another dir, lsla. Now we have a directory and my file. So if I want to copy my file to another directory, I will use the copy command. So cp myfile.txt goes to another directory. Okay, if I go cd another dir ls, you see that my file txt is right here. If I want to remove that file, I would use rm command, rm myfile.txt, and it's going to be removed. As you can see, there is nothing when I list the files. So you have just this dot and dot dot. So let's go back to the previous directory, cd ls, you have my file and you have another dir. Okay, now let's move that file to another directory, and to do that you just do mv command. So move mv my file.txt into another directory, right? So I can even move that file. Actually, if I list this now, of course there is no my file because I moved it, but I can go something like cd another directory and do mv my file, and now I'm not going to move it here, I'm going to move it to my home directory. So right here. So if I do ls, there is nothing right here. If I do cd tilde, I'm going to go to my home directory. And if I ls la right now, my file.txt is right here. So let's move it to my first directory. So mv my file.txt to my first directory, right? That was my mobile phone that you just heard. I of course forgot to turn it off. Okay, so let's go to cd my first directory and create more files. So let's create my file 1, my file 2, 3 and 4. So now we have 4 files right here, and let's copy them to another directory. So I could do just this. So cp everything.txt to another dir. Okay, if I go to cd another directory, pwd, so users, my username, my first directory, another directory, lsla. As you can see, all of those files are copied right here. So if I want to delete them all, rm, I can just do star because I want to delete all of the files in that directory, so I don't need an extension for them. And if I do lsla, you get nothing in here. Let's get back to my first directory, lsla. Now we still have those files right here. So let's talk about file permissions for a little bit, because I think it's a very important subject. So as I said before, if we go right here, open up my terminal, you can see that all of the files I created have read and write permissions for the administrator or the owner, and just the read permissions for the group and others. So how do you change those permissions? Well, first of all, I'm going to leave this link in the description so you can read it better, but it's actually pretty simple. So you have 3 numbers that you have to remember. So 4, 2 and 1. So allows the owner to read, allows the owner to write, and allows the owner to execute files. Now, if you want the owner to read, write and execute files, you would just add those numbers together. So 4 plus 2 plus 1 equals 7. So represents that's for the owner. So rwx is 4 plus 1 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1 equals 7. So we would do chmod, so change mode 7. So that's for the owner. Okay, now for the others, you do the same thing. So if you want the others to just have read and write privileges, you would do 4 plus 2 equals 6. So you would just do 6. And for the others, you do the same thing. So in this example, we have just reading rights. So that would be 4 plus 0 plus 0, because we don't want to add execute rights or write rights. So let's do 7, 6, 4. For file, my file 2.txt. Okay, and now if you do lsla, you can see that I have all the read, write, execute permissions for user, write and read and write permissions for group, and just the read writes for the others. If I want to do chmod 000 for my file, .txt and do lsla. Now as you can see, nobody has any rights to this file, and if I do nano my file .txt, I get nothing in it, and you get this error reading my file txt permission is denied. Okay, now if I want to change the permissions for that file so that everyone can read and write from them, I can just do chmod 777, so read, write, execute for my file.txt. And if I do lsla, you can see that we have all the permissions for that. Now sometimes it may happen, if that file doesn't belong to you, then you would have to do something like sudo chmod 777 my file 1.txt, and then it's going to ask you for your password, and then that file would be changed. This sudo command is actually called super user do. So you're the super user, and even if you have files from other people on your computer, you can change their permissions by using super user, because super user can do anything. So remember that command also. So sudo command is the command for the super user. Of course you can do man sudo and see all the options that you have with it, and you can read about the sudo command. So this is one of the most important commands, and maybe I should even have started with it. So this is the way you would change the permissions on your file. So if something doesn't work right, you get permission errors, check the permissions for your files, and you can maybe solve your problems by just changing their mode or their permissions. So I'm going to show you another command, and this is going to be the last command I'm going to show you for creating compressed archives with a tool called tar. It comes with, I think, all of Unix based systems. So you can use this method to move files from your server to your computer and vice versa, because you don't want to move all the files one by one. You can maybe compress them into an archive, move them to your server, and then decompress them. So we have these files right here in this directory. So how do you use tar? You just do tar, and then you do create zip file. And I have to tell you, I don't think this means create zip file, these flags right here, but that's just something my friend told me, and this helps me remember the command. So create zip file. Okay, so my compressed file .tar.gz, and then you tell it what do you want to compress. I want to compress everything in this directory, so I'm just going to use a star. And now if I click enter, nothing happens, and when nothing happens in the command line, that's usually good. So if we do lsla, you can see that we have this my compressed file .tar.gz. Now I'm just going to go to my home directory. Okay, ls, create a new directory, mkdir uncompress cd uncompress. And now there is another way that you can copy files from somewhere to somewhere else. So you can do something like cp tilde, so my home directory, / my first directory, and then compressed, what did we call that file? My compressed file .targz. So I want to copy this file here, so I will just press dot. And if I do that, if I do pwd, you will see that I'm in users, my username uncompress. And if I do lsla, I will get my compressed file right here. So if I want to decompress it, I would just use tar. Now this is another shorthand that my friend taught me. So to remember this command is xzip file. So expand zip file xzf, and then the name of the file, my compressed file tar gz. Okay, and now that file is uncompressed, and if I do lsla, you can see that I have my file 1, my file 2, another directory, and so on. Okay, so these are the basic commands that you would use in your command line. And now, as I'm saying this, and throughout this tutorial, which is actually now pretty long, I realize that I'm going to have to make another one of these videos, but later in this series, in which we are going to cover some more advanced stuff. So creating aliases, SSH keys, and so on. It is going to help your life as a developer very much. And for the end, I just want to show you one more command, and please use this command carefully. This is called rf command. So this removes all directories, all files, everything in a specific directory, and we are going to remove the directory uncompressed. And now I'm saying that you should use this very carefully, because on Linux and Unix systems you can actually delete all of your files with this command. If you just do something like star, this will delete everything. So you don't want to do that. We want to do uncompress, and we want to delete everything in that directory. So rf, so this is go recursively and delete all the files, and that's it. So ls cd uncompress. As you can see, we don't even have that directory anymore, and we are in our home directory. So we deleted everything. And if we want to also do the same thing for my first directory, you would just do that. As I said, be very careful with this command, because you can actually erase your entire system with it. So rf, my first directory, and now if we try to go to it, as you can see, nothing happens. It doesn't recognize it. ls, you can see there is nothing here. Okay guys, so this has been it for this introduction into the command line. Of course, if you want to ask me questions, you can do that via Twitter, Facebook, even Instagram. Right now I started using it, I like it kind of. Also GitHub, YouTube, and so on, my site. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, it helps a lot. If you really love this video, you can maybe subscribe to my channel, and if you really love this channel, you can maybe become a patron and send some money my way if you want to. If you don't want to, that's okay also. Okay, so thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.